Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning into College Band Radio. This is it is our 9th episode. This week is kind of a little bit weird. Jason's not here, but everything's all good. Everyone's all good. So we do have a guest on for this week. It's just me and Craig, but we will I will be introducing our special guest in just a second. We have a lot of things to talk about, some big band news to talk about, obviously our interview, and then maybe some sports things to talk about at the end, depending on what's going on. I know we have our New Jersey Blasters update / Somerset Patriots update, which all of you are craving for so much. But I think without further ado, we should introduce our special guest. So Justine, please let the people know who you are, what you do, all that good stuff.
Sure, yeah. My name is Justine Spore, and I was the drum major for the UW-Madison, the Wisconsin marching band, for the 2019-2020 season. Wisconsin a little bit different than other bands. We pick our drum majors in August, right before the season starts. So in just a few weeks, Wisconsin will have a new drum major, but technically I am the current drum major, I guess. I just graduated from UW-Madison in May with degrees in journalism and environmental studies. And I'm so happy to be on here with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming out. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your busy Saturday. I know obviously things are getting crazy, but thanks so much for coming on tonight to talk to us. So I think we're going to start off with talking about some kind of shocking news, but I think a lot of it is expected to with what happened with the ACC. I know that I believe it's just they've sidelined their athletic bands for the season, right? No, yeah. Kind of like the same thing as what the American did.
Yeah. So there was no official word on what's going to be happening in the stadium in general. That's still up to the schools themselves, as well as, if there are any state regulations or whatnot. But all bands are no longer permitted on the fields. I guess leaving the fields to just the players and necessary staff. And so what does that mean for the bands? Well, you're not going to get any pregame shows, any halftime shows. And if you're already cutting out so much of it and you're just going to be in the stands, which is already going to be a weird position to be in, because everything's going to have to be so spread out. The whole band is going to, if you're having the whole thing there, it's going to take up like the entire end zone part of the stadium. You have to wonder, is it worth it? Personally, I would be very disappointed if I was finishing my junior year this past semester, going to be a senior, and this was going to be your senior season, to be told, hey, yeah, it's done. But like at this point, it's almost expected. But I think it raises a very good question. Is this just one conference making a call, or is this the first of a series of dominoes? So what do you guys think?
Sure. Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think this is the beginning of the end. The same thing happened when the MLB started up a few weeks ago. I was excited about it, and then, players started testing positive, and I was like, well, that's kind of it. I mean, I kind of expected this to be shut down in just a few weeks anyways. It's really unfortunate. I feel so bad for the people, like you said, they're going to be seniors this year. Totally sucks. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Totally sucks. And yeah, it's just, I think the biggest issue with not having a season this year is going to be that the following year, if things are back to normal, every band is going to have basically 2 classes of freshmen, to train and teach and show the ropes. I think that's going to be a huge undertaking for every single band out there.
Yeah. I think you raise a really good point. Yeah, sorry.
I completely agree. I'm glad that Justine brought up baseball. I mean, obviously wearing my race hat, as bad as they are currently doing right now against the Orioles, who are one of the worst teams in baseball, but I digress. It's like, so I live in South Jersey, where I live about 20 minutes away from the Philadelphia Phillies stadium. If you guys don't know what happened last weekend with the Miami Marlins, they came in for a series. Some players tested positive before, I believe it was either Saturday or Sunday's game. And now I believe 18 or 19 players on the team have now tested positive, which is just absolutely crazy. And the college football and college sports are kind of in the same places where the MLB is, different to what's going on in the NBA, different to what's going on in the NHL. the PLL, MLS, NWSL, all of those leagues are quarantined in a bubble, and the MLB and college football aren't. And that's going to be what's going to go on with the NFL too. So honestly, something like this seems a lot more probable of happening in terms of players being more susceptible, just because people are traveling so much across the country and in different places. Even though they're trying to kind of condense where people are going, you're still traveling, getting on buses, going on airplanes, things like that. And when it comes to the band side of it, it really does suck. It sucks that people are going to have their seasons taken away from them. But it's like, if it was in a bubble, it would be a completely different situation. But you can't possibly put it in a bubble, just so the sheer scale and size of what college football is. It's not outfitted for a bubble. You can do it with the NBA. I'm pointing to my TV because I just watched the Sixers game. So you can do it with the NBA. You can do it with the NHL. Those are kind of unique situations where they're kind of in that playoff format. And you can do it with other leagues that are smaller, but it's with the amount of players that you have on a team in college football. That's so many guys. That's so many different teams that you would need to put into one small area. And I think that would cause more problems, but I just think that's not feasible. So unfortunately, I have to. I don't want to say it, but I have to agree with both of you guys that it sucks, and this is more. I'm expecting more conferences to follow suit. I just don't know when they're going to announce it.
Yeah, I think. But Justine, going back to your point about like having two classes of freshmen coming in basically at the start of I guess it's going to be the 2021 season of football. Assuming we get back to normal by then, there's just going to be so much that's different. I mean, like, band traditions, half of the members of the band won't have ever been through them. Especially I know like section traditions. If you have a section that doesn't have a very great retention rate, like a lot of times there'll be a large freshman class, and then as you go up the upperclassmen, their classes get harder. They have to drop out of band because they have to focus on their priorities. And when it comes down to it, if you don't have that many upperclassmen, the entire dynamic of the section changes. And so you're just shifting the kind of that transition point. So I think over the next few years, because of COVID, we're going to see some massive changes among marching bands. And marching bands and just other programs in general. And we actually did want to get on a member of one of the ACC bands. Unfortunately, most of them were told, we don't want you making any public statements at this time, for obvious reasons, to control the spread of misinformation and whatnot. So we are only sharing what we know from like articles that we've read, along with our own opinions. But yeah, so it's basically just, I think, like you two have said, it's the beginning of the end of the season already. Hasn't even started, but
yeah,
here we are.
One thing I keep thinking about too is that even if they decided to not have fans and not have the bands, Madison is a huge tailgate city. And so if they're holding football games, even if it's, in a bubble, people are going to be, watching the game, tailgating, and gathering, and even if it's outdoors, that's still putting people at risk. So I think that universities are going to seriously have to consider, even if the games are, no fans, televised only elsewhere, being very careful with the actual physical logistics of it. Broadcasting those games at all is still going to bring people together. And like, I want to watch football and cheer on the Badgers just as much as anybody else. Like, I'm going to be devastated, if there's no Badger football this fall. But like, there are all these other factors that play into this, and trying to control the virus numbers is not easy. You have to think about all these different things that go on game days.
Exactly. And it's when everyone's gathered around a TV or gathered around like a table, and if they're eating and whatnot, no masks on, it's definitely going to be a challenge to, that's the side that I hadn't even considered. I hadn't even thought about that actually. that, just because there are no fans in the stands doesn't mean that fans aren't transmitting it among their circles and their groups, because in the end, sporting events are communal events. Like, people don't play sports just because. People play sports because people want to watch the sports, and down the line there's a potential for making money. Kids doing Little League, everyone dreams of being like the star shortstop. Everyone wanted to be Derek Jeter when I was younger.
Totally.
And so, like, but if there's nobody watching the games, then there's no sports. So, like, that's a really good point, that community aspect, and eliminating the in-stadium transmission of the virus. Sure, it takes the liability off the owners of the stadiums and whatnot, but it doesn't actually necessarily reduce the risk of transmission.
Yeah.
But I think it's time that we lighten the mood a little bit, and instead of talking about doom and gloom and the coronavirus, which everybody's probably sick and tired of hearing about after 6 months of this, let's talk about something a little more interesting. So, Justine, you are from Wisconsin, and as most of our Big Ten listeners probably know, Wisconsin is known for a lot of things. One thing that is keg in the closet. For those of you that don't know, we are not referring to the Kenny Chesney song. We are referring to the song that is about to play right now, that you guys may have heard as like the intro and outro music of previous episodes. But I digress. We have somebody who's actually living in the home where Keg in the Closet was originated. So, if you could just give us a little history lesson on what it is, what was its origins.
Sure thing. Well, the lore of the song is that it was created by members of the trumpet section at Wisconsin many years ago. I don't know, I don't have a specific year for you guys, but many years ago, as a way to get people to leave the house. They wanted to create a song that was going to be so awful and so annoying to listen to that people would leave the house after a game day or during a tailgate. When the people who lived at the house were like, that's enough, you guys can leave our house now. They'd put the song on, Keg in the Closet song, and people would leave the house because it was just that annoying. So that's the lore, that's the story.
It's a good story. It's definitely, I mean, I know it's become a huge thing within the Big Ten marching band page for those that aren't on it. But is it weird, I guess, for you knowing that like you're in the house where like that all kind of started, or is that something that like people like prefaced you going into it that like this is a thing here, and like what I guess like all of that, like what I guess like what was your experience with all of that?
Sure, yeah, it's definitely something we joke about a lot. It's kind of more of a meme at this point. Obviously, you guys know it gets plastered all over that Big Ten's Band Facebook page every second of every hour. So it's definitely a meme, and we like to joke about it. It's a funny thing. We take some pride in being the ones who, or the band that created it, take a little bit of credit there. But yeah, I'd say it's more of just a meme than anything else. That's kind of what it is.
Yeah. I remember my senior year of band, a freshman messaged me on Facebook. He was like, "Hey, this might be a weird question, but what's Keg in the Closet?" And I was like, "Don't worry, dude. It's just a meme in there." He was like, "But like, what's the story behind it?" So, Jacob, if you are listening, that is the story behind it. I know I'm about a year and a half late, but that is the origin story. And
when there's a will, there's a way.
Exactly. But one thing that some listeners may have picked up on was that we said that you were living in that same house, and that this happened many years ago. So one thing that the Wisconsin band is very good at is kind of tradition, and you've got a very strong identity. I remember during the pre-interview you used the terms pride and grit. Could you go into just like a little detail and kind of tell us about, who is the Wisconsin band, what separates you guys out and makes you the people you are and the band that you are?
Yeah, totally. I think the words pride and grit are really good words to describe the Wisconsin band. I think this band is very unique. Obviously, our step is very unique, which we might talk a little bit more about later, but the stop at the top high step marching is incredibly difficult. Like not exaggerating, like the hardest thing I've ever done. Very, very hard. And that brings us together. And I think it makes people feel, it gives them a sense of pride, accomplishing that, especially getting through Reg Week, band camp, as you guys call it, I think. But learning how to do that step and do it well, and then put out a really great show each and every game day. It just gives us an immense sense of pride. The Wisconsin Med is also, like you said, very rooted in tradition. We have a lot of traditions, and I think part of that stems from having the same director, Mike LaCrone, for 50 years. And having that continuity over such a large period of time really helped create a culture where seniority is valued and traditions are really important. And just creating an attitude of the Wisconsin band. Like I said before, like the grit is really important. We call ourselves the hardest working band in the country, and I will stand by that. I think we are. And so having that attitude of putting in really, really hard work and putting together the best possible show that we possibly can, each and every performance. Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. Pride and grit.
So I was so I guess since you mentioned the Wisconsin band's marching style, can you go into a little bit more detail about how you guys learn it, how difficult it is since you described already about that, and what it does over the course of the season to you guys?
Sure thing. Yeah, so learning the marching step is the hardest part. And to be honest, a lot of people who come into our band in college with experience in high school, having done roll step or other kinds of drill, often find it more challenging than someone coming in with no marching experience at all, because it's literally just so different than what anybody has ever done in high school. And so the biggest thing is there's supposed to be a stop at the top in every step. So a slight moment of hesitation when your knee is up and your toes are pointed down. And that's something that Mike LaCrone created. And we're really proud of it. He's really proud of it. And the reason is that it makes our shows so unbelievably engaging. I think that when people watch us do that high step, it's just more fun to watch. Better, the movements are more exaggerated, and it's, if you're up in the upper decks, you can see the toes pointed, you can see the spats pointed down, you can see the legs moving, you can watch the hesitation in every single step. And I think that's really engaging and, something we really take pride in. And something I hope stays with us and something I hope doesn't go away.
And for those of you who haven't been able to make it to Madison or to a bowl game that Wisconsin's been at, if you haven't been able to see them marching live, it's videos will show off the technique a little bit, but it doesn't do it justice to see how kind of intense it is and how rigorous it is, especially for somebody who I'm sure everybody listening has marched or at least knows somebody who's done marching band, but I think so everybody can kind of understand like this, that learning any marching technique can be difficult, but then you go and you look at Wisconsin's technique and you see how physical it is and how intense it is, and it's got to take some toll on the body over the course, because you're out there. When does Reg Week start? Probably mid-August normally. Do you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
So you're going from then through Thanksgiving weekend on that last game of the regular season. Plus, you guys aren't too unfamiliar with the Big Ten championships either. So tack on another week for that. Then it's bowl game season. So over the course of, what is it? Mid-August,
long period of time,
like 3.5 months, doing that probably, I don't know, every day, every other day. It probably takes some tolls on the body. Can you just go into things that you've noticed, whether it be like common injuries that you see people having, or just like all general getting in better shape?
Yeah, for sure. What I'll start out with is Mike LaCrone always used to say during Reg Week, after like the first few days, he was like, tomorrow morning, you're going to think of me. When you put your feet on the ground and you stand up, you're going to think of me because you are going to be so sore. And that is so true. Getting through those like Reg Week and then the first few weeks before the season actually starts are absolutely brutal. And like, I don't want to sugarcoat it at all. It's unbelievably hard. And so what we recommend for people coming in is just like whatever you can do over the summer to, you know, get in shape, get those muscles moving. If you want to meet up with other band members and start marching, keep, you know, get in better shape, that's going to really, really help. As for like seasonal longevity, people lose toenails all the time. That's like a very common thing. And we also have an athletic trainer that comes to our rehearsals and travels with us. Jonathan was our trainer last year. He was phenomenal, such a great guy. And he was there to, you know, help people with the nagging aches and pains, definitely more as the season goes on, but some at the beginning too, while your body's adjusting to it. But yeah, it's definitely, like I said, the hardest thing I've ever done. Besides just the marching step too, being able to blow through an instrument while you're doing that high step is so challenging. And that's, I think, almost harder than the marching step itself, is learning to do that marching step, do it well, do it consistently and for a long period of time, but also play your horn, you know, play the best that you can, keep your air moving and make, good quality sound. We have this thing that we call swole for bowl. And that's basically that we're just trying to get as muscular and as big and bulky and strong as possible for the bowl game. So that's our motto heading into the postseason every year.
I love it.
I think that's actually a perfect segue. So obviously, for those that don't know, Wisconsin is really good at football, like much better than Maryland and Rutgers, and like one of the best college football programs, at least recent years. I don't know about all time, but I know at least in recent years, Wisconsin has been a very, very good football program, which means that they get to travel to a lot of bowl games, because that means they usually win 6 games in a season, which – God, 6 wins just sounds great. I mean, but
a conference win would sound pretty nice.
Yeah. But so you guys have, so in your tenure, you've gotten to go to 3 New Year's Six bowl games. So I believe, I want to make sure. So Rose Bowl, Cotton Bowl, and Orange Bowl.
Yep. Those are the 3 New Year's Six, and then Pinstripe Bowl is the other one.
And Pinstripe Bowl in New York. So we're going to go I know we're going to go a little bit more in depth into the Rose Bowl, but like talk about what it's like going to a bowl game, especially knowing that Wisconsin has such a huge fan base that I'm assuming travels pretty well, and talk about how, like, what a bowl game experience is like with several hundred of your closest band friends in some city that you guys have really never been in together.
Yeah, for sure. Bowl games are the best. They're so much fun. We love traveling as a band. And like you said, Wisconsin fans travel very, very well. So wherever we go, we can always find a fan base, which is really, really nice. And I think we take it for granted sometimes. I've also had the opportunity to travel with basketball and hockey and volleyball. And so, doing those pep rallies in who knows where, some small stadium, wherever, having those Badger fans, seeing that Cardinal red in the stands really means something. Bowl games are also really fun because we've gotten to fly. We flew to the Cotton Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Pinstripe Bowl, and the Rose Bowl. And so flying as a band has been super fun. We got to take, I don't remember specifically which bowl it was, but there was one trip where we put the entire band on one plane. It was one of the huge, like, Boeing, 747s, I think. And yes, the entire EW marching band was on one plane, and it was so much fun. And so, yeah, like you said, getting to go to a new place with 300 of your best friends, cheer on your team, play great music, and celebrate with other Wisconsin fans. Wisconsin has a really great sense of camaraderie, I think. And so when we're in uniform, or even if we're just in band apparel, walking around on the streets, wherever we are, people say hi to us. They're like, hey, go Badgers, like, go, like, let's go red. Let's do it. We'll see you guys at the game. And so it's really fun to interact with those fans, who maybe live in that area and haven't seen their team in years. It's possible. So yeah, interacting in those ways is really fun. We also I personally love interacting with other bands. We got to interact with the Oregon band at the Rose Bowl quite a bit, which was super fun. And we loved the Oregon fans as well. They were super nice, so fun, so great to be around. So that's definitely another perk.
I am curious, again, before we go into the Rose Bowl stuff, in terms of like food that you've gotten and or had at each of these bowl games and or trips that you've been on, whether that be in marching band, basketball, pep band, hockey, volleyball, etc. What's the best food that you've had at any of these places? And at just the bowl games specifically, what places stand out?
Yeah, totally. So there are two experiences I'll tell you about. The first is positive and the second is not so positive. The first one was at the Cotton Bowl. We went to, I'm not going to remember the name of it, but it was like a rodeo, like cowboy place. And we had like pulled pork, like, you know, all the fixins. And we learned how to square dance, and just had like a hoot and a half, you know, at this rodeo place. I'm blanking on the name. I wish I remember what it was called, but I remember the food there being awesome. It was like baked beans, you know, pulled pork, all that good stuff, the good, you know, Dallas, what you'd expect at the Cotton Bowl, really.
Yeah.
The other one that stands out in my mind that's not so positive is the Big Ten Championship in, I think it was 2016. Half of our band got food poisoning. Like at the game. And so people were, and I don't think we ever figured out exactly what the source was. Maybe some bandos are going to come after me being like, it's very contentious basically. It was either like the hotel chicken or like Firehouse subs, and nobody knows where it came from. But what happened was we literally had holes in our halftime show because people were puking on the sidelines. Like they couldn't even make it out onto the field to perform. And
That's not good.
No, it was not good at all.
Not good.
Not good. I think we even had people, you know, stay the night there at a hospital, you know, like IVs and everything. And the biggest thing that I remember from that is the bus ride home right after the game, because people were just puking all over the place.
Oh, that must have smelled so bad.
It was terrible. Yes. Like something from your nightmares, pretty much.
And how long was that bus ride? Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, I think it's like 6 hours, and you know we're doing it after the game too, so we're getting back at like, you know, the wee hours of the morning, and so everyone's first of all exhausted from an entire game day, second of all possibly have food poisoning and or have listened to your other peers throw up for the past 3 hours on a bus. So all in all, terrible experience, wouldn't recommend it. But as for like food traveling experiences, that one definitely stands out in my mind.
Sounds like it. Well, I guess on a more positive note, so obviously the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all, as they say, you guys got a chance to go to it last year in your senior year as drum major, and I know you showed us that photo of you guys at the Rose Parade and you leading it, which is a really, really cool picture, and I'm sure that we'll probably find a way to put it somewhere in this segment right now. But describe how the Rose Bowl experience is, because I know that you guys have the Rose Parade, obviously the day of the game. I know you guys went to Disneyland for a parade. I know you guys went to LA Live just outside of Staples Center for a gathering and things like that. How is it like being in LA / Pasadena / that area, and how was the entire experience? I know it was only a couple days, but you guys did so much. Like did it feel like it went by like that because you guys did so much? Or
yeah, it totally went by in like the blink of an eye. We had a few days ahead of the game, and we had practices both days, which definitely sucks up some time because, you know, you have to, first of all, find a field, truck out to that field, unload everything, get everybody set up, et cetera, et cetera. Very time-consuming process. But outside of those rehearsals, we got to do a ton, and it was honestly a dream come true. I mean, everybody dreams about the Tournament of Roses parade. My mom talks about watching that parade as a little girl on TV every year and how like it was a really big deal to her and her family. And she, you know, she's from Nebraska. She has never been in a marching band. She didn't play an instrument. I mean, just like the Rose Parade, you know, and what that means for so many people. Felt really special to be a part of that. Truly, like I said, a dream come true. So that was awesome. Like you said, we got to play at Disneyland, so that was really fun too. We paraded in, cadenced in a little bit, did a fifth quarter. And like I said, Badger fans travel super well. There were Badger fans in Disneyland waiting to hear us play. So that was fun. And then LA Live was another really great one. We got to hear some Wisconsin alumni from the team speak. Barry Alvarez was there. Some women from the volleyball team. Our volleyball team is phenomenal. They were there too. They spoke. And just, getting everybody all riled up for the game. It was super fun.
I can only imagine. I do want to say, so it could be, because you just touched on volleyball, have you ever stood next to Dana Redke? And if you have, how she's 6'8". I mean, like that's got to be intimidating, just going up to her and being like, "Hi, how's it going?" Like, just
totally. Yeah, I've never stood next to her, but I absolutely love watching her play. I mean, she is phenomenal. She's a phenom. She's such a boss. I feel like there's no other way to say it. I love watching her play. I love watching her have fun. I love watching her spike that ball. It's just great to watch. I love it. I consider it a hobby.
Yeah, definitely being 6'8" in any sport is a good thing, for better or worse. Craig, do you want to take the floor for a little bit?
Yeah, so I guess let's kind of going back to the theme of the Rose Bowl and your experiences there. One thing that a lot of people may know is that the parade is very, very long, and as we just previously discussed, you have a very difficult marching technique. So were you doing your what's it called, the stop on top, I believe, right? The stop on top technique.
Stop at the top, yeah.
Stop at the top. Were you doing that the entire time? I think 5.2 miles of it or so, or however long?
So no, we were not doing that the entire time. We were filtering through a cadence sequence though, and every time On Wisconsin came on, we did march though. So definitely a significant portion of it. We were all fried at the end. I think that's fair to say. Besides walking that distance and marching, just being in the sun for that long, and the day of the Rose Bowl is like an 18-hour day. Like it was the longest day of my life. It was worth every second, every drop of sweat, everything. It was totally worth it. But it's a very long day. I think we got up at 3 or 4 in the morning to get our uniforms on, get everything loaded up, and head to the start of the parade. Did the whole parade, which is so fun. The other thing about the Rose Bowl parade that got me was that, we do a lot of parades on 4th of July in small Wisconsin towns. We do, and I'm sure you guys have these experiences too. We do parades, and sometimes there's a lot of people there and sometimes there's not, and you roll with the punches, and it's great to be performing either way. But the thing about the Rose Parade is that it was packed the entire 5 and whatever miles. There were people lining the sidewalks the entire way, layers of people. Enough people that you couldn't see the sidewalk underneath them or past them. And that was just so cool. And, marching past all of those people and watching them cheer us on and being in those neighborhoods with all those people was just so special. I don't think I stopped smiling once. I think I smiled the entire way. It was just such a great feeling. So as we got to the end of the parade, we knew we were going to get fed. And we were all hyped up because we were going to get In-N-Out burgers. And first of all, they were delicious. We each got 2 cheeseburgers and chips and a water, et cetera, et cetera. And they tasted better than anything I've ever had in my entire life. They were perfect. But the thing that maybe I'm speaking for myself here, but I feel like maybe other people had this reaction as well, was, then we did a gig and we went straight into pregame on a belly full of nothing but 2 cheeseburgers. And so I remember feeling so unbelievably nauseous right before pregame at the Rose Bowl. And I'm sure part of that was because I was nervous, because I absolutely was. But also just 2 hunks of beef and cheese in my stomach on a hot day. Definitely. So that was kind of a fun, unforeseen experience that went along with the parade.
I will say one thing. Shout out to B Movie for being one of many few memories that I have about the Rose Parade. Don't know why it came up in my head, but shout out to B Movie. Great movie, underrated film, deserves more credit than what it got. But yeah, sorry, Craig.
all good. Okay, that was probably giving some flashbacks of people feeling kind of nauseous, getting around there like, oh no, it's gonna happen again.
Oh
I
yeah,
know.
the Big Ten championship. You mean?
Oh
That,
yeah, sorry, yeah, you're right.
that-
That was a Big Ten championship.
yes, the food poisoning ordeal, big
Yep.
time.
Oh yes, I would have been very worried. I was like, it's happening again. Oh come on, it's happening. Not again. But I'm glad to hear that nobody had issues on the sidelines making it onto the field. But but I can only imagine. I mean, you're basically jumping on the field when you're when you're doing your technique, and oh, that must have been so unpleasant. But speaking of jumping, let's move into some traditions that go on in Wisconsin. Traditions, and I guess one big part of tradition is kind of the man who created all the traditions. But yeah, I mean, first, before we get into that, what is your opinion on jump around? Before we get into anything a little more interesting, before we get into the other stuff.
I love Jump Around. I will never hear that song in the same way. It will give me goosebumps and literally enact a physical response in me for the rest of my life. Jump Around is awesome, and I cannot recommend it enough. If you can find your way to Camp Randall this fall, or maybe not this fall, but sometime in the future for a Badger game, definitely take part in Jump Around and experience that. It is unbelievable. One of my favorite parts of game day, for sure.
And can you just explain to those of the listeners that don't know what it is? Can you just give like a little elevator pitch on just what Jump Around is?
Yeah, so it's literally between the third and fourth quarters, they play the song Jump Around by House of Pain, and everybody jumps, and the stadium literally shakes. And this might be an exaggeration, but to me it feels like the entire city of Madison is jumping around and shaking and just rattling. It's awesome. It's so much fun. Everybody's screaming the words, jumping around, doing it, and having a really great time.
It sounds like fun. But let's take a little deeper of a dive into just the traditions and I guess history of the band, and especially the man who kind of invented probably what I'd assume are most of the lasting traditions of the Wisconsin band, Mike LeCrone, who, for obviously and as many of our listeners may know, he's the former director of the Wisconsin band for I believe 50 years, and he's quite the showman and a beloved figure in Madison. So if you want to go into a little some about who he was, what he kind of gave to the university, and a little bit about his legacy.
Yeah, definitely. Mike LeCrone, yeah, like you said, was our director for the past 50 years. His 84th birthday was just yesterday, the day before, I think. So go Mike, happy birthday, Mike. He is an awesome guy. Truly one of the most, when I think about my college experience, I think about Mike LeCrone. And I think about all the things he's given me and what he did for the UW band program. Like you said, he started some of the really big traditions in Wisconsin football, and came to Wisconsin at a time when the football team was not doing so hot. It was, losing all their games, not, just being bad, basically. And so he kind of used the band to help reinvigorate an interest and a passion in Wisconsin football. And it's awesome that the band was right alongside for that kind of reimagining and reinvigorating of Wisconsin football. And like I said, he started the Stop at the Top step, which is arguably our trademark, the trademark marching step, and really brought like you were saying, a sense of tradition to the band. A lot of I don't know if pomp and circumstance is the right phrase there, but a lot of just sense of responsibility. And like I was talking about earlier, the attitude of the Wisconsin band. I think he really helped form that and helped to make us who we are and who we want to be. Definitely.
But yeah, so Mike, he gave so much to it. And what a lot of people don't understand is, what a band program can do to like an athletic program. A lot of people say, oh, our football team is struggling, which means, people aren't buying tickets. There's not a lot of money in the department. What can we cut? Well, let's cut funding to the band is what a lot of people might think, oh, it's just the marching band. What do they need all this money for anyway? But if you bring in the right person he will. I mean, first of all, if you bring in the right person, they could easily turn the entire attitude around like Mike did. They could give continuity. He was there for 50 years. That is half a century. That is, I mean,
it's so long. It's so long.
like people and their children could have both marched under his direction.
And they have, and they did.
Place.
That
Exactly.
happened.
Yeah. That's absolutely.
And you fathom that
insane.
basically. Like, is it tough to fathom thinking that like he's been doing this for 50 years? Like, that's like twice as long.
That, to be honest, it's such a long time. Yeah. Like you were saying though, I mean, a band can really uplift a football program, and one of Mike's biggest traditions was the fifth quarter, which we might talk a little bit more about later, but the fifth quarter was basically invented to keep people in the stands for the entire game. The band started playing songs that were really popular, and that the student section and the fans really enjoyed, like Bud. And Mike decided, and maybe the athletic department had some say in this too, I'm not exactly sure how it went down, but basically they decided, let's do a fifth quarter. We'll play all these really great songs and do all the stuff that people want to see. We'll do it in a fifth quarter, and that will keep people in the stands, and kind of, like I was saying, reinvigorate this interest in Wisconsin football. Keep the fans there, bring some more passion into the stadium.
I think that's absolutely an incredible thing that he did. Because he basically wrote the story for Wisconsin. He was like, here you go. You want a successful program. He laid the groundwork. He built that foundation, and then they were like, all right, now that we have fans that will stay, now let's actually utilize it and create a program. And I think it's talking about like the Wisconsin band has so much. There's so much to it that a lot of people, if you're just like, oh yeah, they put on good shows, like you'd never realize how much they actually contributed to what we know today as, like the University of Wisconsin.
Yeah, Madison's game day experience, definitely.
Well, I was going to ask, so on the flip side of that, obviously, it seems like I seem to be the bearer of bad news when it comes to questions. But so obviously, unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. And Mike decided to retire, I believe it was 2 years ago. So the end of the 17-18 season, or the end of the
just
18-19?
Last year. So this was our first season without him. Yeah.
Okay. So I know that, and you talked about this in the pre-interview, that this was kind of a long time coming, obviously. So with that in mind, I guess when the actual announcement happened that he said, or, that this was going to be his final year, even though you guys were expecting it, what was the reaction like from everyone? And in that reaction, afterwards, trying to find that new director, was it weird to think about like Mike's not going to be here next year, so we have to find someone new?
Yeah, it was definitely very weird. I think it was definitely, Mike's retirement was expected, I think, but we didn't know when it was going to come. And it wasn't something that, people necessarily went up and asked him about. But he's such a showman, it made sense for him to go out on 50. I think that worked out really well for him. It sounds like he's enjoying his retirement for sure. When he made that announcement, it was definitely a mix of emotions. There was some surprise, obviously, like I said, because we knew it was coming, but not exactly when. It was just very bittersweet. I think that, people were like, wow, if this is it for Mike LeCrone, like we better make this the best freaking season that we've ever had, we better, go all out, really make this count for the man who has done so much for us. And so that was definitely a very strong sentiment that day. I cried. A lot of people cried because it was very sad. It was hard to think about band without Mike LeCrone. It was hard to think about the fall semester without Mike LeCrone. Even the spring semester with our spring concert, it was hard to think about, quite frankly, for the people in our band, and maybe I'm speaking for myself, but it was hard to think about college without Mike LeCrone. He had played such a big part in my first 3 years at UW, that it was hard to imagine what it was going to look like. And so that year was phenomenal. It was awesome. I think we sent him out the best way we could, and we're so grateful that he's still around. He came for the first game this past year and stayed for the fifth quarter, and came by for Badger Bash and everything. So still having him around is really awesome. But yeah, it was tough to see him go, definitely. I think another sentiment though was that this was an opportunity for change, and change isn't always a bad thing, and that the band in the 2019-2020 season was going to have a lot of weight and responsibility on their shoulders to really make the best of this transition, and work with whoever our new director was going to be to make the season as best as we could, and bring the band forward into a new era pretty much. And so I wasn't actually around for the selection or the interviews with the directors, but Corey Pompey is our new director, and he's phenomenal. Truly love him to pieces. He did a fantastic job this year. I think he was the perfect man to take over from Mike, to be, the next leg in the relay, and bring Wisconsin into the new era, like I was saying.
And what was it like being part of the leadership team under the new director? You were a drum major during that period. So I'm sure there was some extra sense of responsibility that you felt to kind of carry over the traditions and carry over his legacy and bring it into the new thing, as being kind of the face of the band, being that head drum major.
Totally. Yeah. I definitely cannot take all the credit. We had a phenomenal leadership team this year. And I really think that everyone kind of decided that this was the time to step up and, really think about our traditions and think about how our band is now, how we want it to be in the future, and what steps we could take in this year to make that happen. And to create continuity, and especially for the freshmen coming in with no experience with Mike Leckrone, bringing them into this community, and teaching them what we do, how we do it, but also making everyone understand that, we had to go into this with an open mind. We couldn't be stuck in our ways, and not, accept feedback and be willing to, play with variation, to make changes and take risks in our, both in our our formation and drill, but also in music and, day-to-day schedules and things like that.
I think that's actually a perfect place. So before we go into kind of the lighthearted stuff to end, I think that's a perfect place to kind of segue, because you were talking about change. And in the pre-interview, you talked to us about a couple of things that you helped enact while you were in the band, that we can touch upon in a second. And obviously, you being a female drum major, we've interviewed a few previous female drum majors at Big Ten bands, and I know that that's something to take a lot of pride in, especially at Wisconsin. And you really articulated it well to us to kind of describe how that experience was. But on top of that, could you talk about some the initiative, the initiatives that you have been or that you helped to enact, and then also how it's like being a female drum major at a Big Ten school, and especially helping to represent Wisconsin?
Totally. Yeah. I and not the first female drum major at Wisconsin, not even close. We had our first back in the 80s, Dee Williams, and there were more than a few female drum majors before me. So Wisconsin has this really rich history of being inclusive and, pushing those lines. But one of the things that I can't take all the credit for this, but my peers and I have been working on is ways to confront and talk about violence, bullying, and sexual harassment within marching bands, especially regarding hazing, because more than a few Big Ten bands have had scandals with this, ourselves included. Wisconsin had a scandal in 2008, but we wanted to really address this and take it head on and create something that was peer-led, and that would be worthwhile for both incoming students and returning students to just talk about these issues and not shy away from them and hide for them. And so what we ended up doing was the goal is to create sort of a program that is interconnected with all the Big Ten bands, actually. So I will plug this until the day I die. And if anyone listening wants more information, we can definitely get you get you hooked up. But basically, it's the Allegiance Against Sexual Assault in Collegiate Marching Bands. And so it was, like I said, collegiate marching bands, especially in the Big Ten, have a history and a reputation. And again, we wanted to create like a preventative measure that was by students and for students. So the three components of this basically were a bystander intervention training for incoming members, an intimate partner violence workshop for second and third years, and then a leadership workshop for people who are going to be on the leadership team in the band. And the biggest thing of this was that the creators of this program, and then everybody who's kind of taken the reins since then, it was important that it didn't feel like an order that was like coming down from the university, you know, something from the office of whatever, like a big hammer down on the band. It had to feel more like a peer-led community safe space pretty much. And so, especially for freshmen, you know, coming in, it means a lot when your rank leaders and your section leaders are saying this to you and having these conversations with you, rather than, you know, an older person who has never been in the band, has never been in any band, and has no experience with, you know, their peer pressure and hazing that can go along in organizations like this. And so that's been something we're working on, and I'm really excited about. I think it's been a huge success at Wisconsin. And yeah, so my plug here is that if you want more information, you can email Caty Abitz, so CGABITZ at wisc.edu, WISC.edu. And we also have a Facebook page, which is the Allegiance Against Sexual Assault in Collegiate Marching Bands. So go give that page a like, and yeah, get involved if you can.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll all be down in the description. You can just go and find all the information down there. So yeah, so thank you for especially giving that little plug and kind of saying like how you can reach out especially if you're not from Wisconsin, you didn't even know about this, but maybe you want to, you know, get the ball rolling and getting this set up and running at your school in your band, because, you know, issues like this with hazing and sexual assault, it's not just a Wisconsin problem. It's a pandemic, just like the coronavirus. We just gotta get it all out.
Yeah, I did want to ask, when you guys originally proposed the idea, were a lot of people receptive to it, or was it something that took a little bit of time for people to say, hey, this is something that we should implement?
Yeah, so this is actually this year will be the third that it's been in existence, so it's still fairly new. And I think that as it's gone on, people have embraced it a little bit more, which is totally fine because it is student-led, and we've partnered with other organizations on the UW campus. So like I think we partnered with Domestic Abuse Intervention Services, and then an organization here called Sex Out Loud, to kind of bring in some more students on campus and just get other voices involved. So it's not just, you know, us band members talking about this stuff, which we are definitely not experts on. I don't want to pretend I'm an expert on any of these issues. But yeah, it was definitely, I think that, like I said, people have embraced it more as it's gone on, and there's obviously still work to be done. I don't think that we consider our work done, especially in terms of we're working with our director to improve upon the framework by addressing how these issues intersect with race, especially, and understanding that these issues are super intersectional, and so not shying away from that part, and continuing to work on it and have those conversations and bring more of those issues into it.
All right, that's perfect. Thank you so much for you know, for talking to us about that in the pre-interview, but also mentioning it to us here, because obviously it is something that really needs to be corrected, and hopefully will be corrected with this and other programs over the coming years. I think from this we can kind of go, you know, a little bit more lighthearted, try to take, you know, kind of a fun spin to end this interview and end the episode before Craig has our Somerset Patriots / New Jersey Blasters update, which you guys have been craving for so much. Oh my goodness. But so speaking of, obviously there's a lot of tradition at Wisconsin. What are some of the band traditions that you guys have that are, you know, No one else does it. This is something like uniquely Wisconsin.
Yeah. So the fifth quarter, for one thing, is really unique to Wisconsin and very special to us. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It is another period after the football game where the band takes the field, plays all the fan favorites, does silly dances, and basically just goes haywire for an entire quarter. And it's so much fun. Those fifth quarters are really, really special. It definitely adds on to the day. And game days are for everybody. Game days are a long day. And so it definitely adds on to the day, but they mean a lot to us. They're really special to us. We got to do one at the Rose Bowl this year, so that was especially special. So the fifth quarter is a really great one. We also do Badger Bash before the games, and so that's just basically a pregame concert. So we'll play through the tunes that we're going to play that day, and then we end with some rousing polka music and dance the polka before cadence syncs through the Camp Randall arch to the stadium. So those are two really special ones for just game day related that are really special to me and part of the band's game day experience.
What about things that are within the band? So, like, I know that you talked about how everyone in the band has a nickname. I don't know if that's something that you want to get into, and other things of that sort.
Sure, yeah. That's one of the really fun things that we get to do is when you join the UW band, everybody gets what we call a band name. And different sections have different traditions for how those names are given to you. I definitely don't know all the ins and outs of it. But everybody gets a band name, and we go by those names during the season and outside of the season. Sometimes those names are so appropriate and fitting that they kind of just become the person. So that definitely happens too. In my case, just as an example, I was given my band name through an interview. So people asked me, my upperclassmen in my rank asked me questions, and based on my answers to those questions, they put together a name. And so my band name is Ozzy, which is a derivative of Hank Azaria, which is the voice actor in The Simpsons and a couple other shows, I believe. But yeah, that's how I got my name. Other sections do it very differently. But that's a really great kind of community thing that helps people feel included and is a great way to meet people around you and meet your upperclassmen and have your upperclassmen meet you and basically be welcomed into the UW band.
Along with that, obviously, Madison is quite unique, being the state capital, and also UW being literally in it. And then I know you guys aren't surrounded by water, but there is a lot of water within the area, and I know that that's a big thing. I don't know how big of a thing that is, but Madison's really unique, and I'm sure that the people of Madison, you included, having gone there for 4 years, are going to say that this is the end all be all when it comes to a college town. What makes Madison unique? What are things that are whether that be food places or shops or anything like that that's uniquely Madison that you if you were to kind of give someone a tour, if they were going there for the first time, these are the places that you have to go, and this is what makes Madison.
Yeah, totally. For one thing, bratwurst is a huge thing here. Delicious. If you've never had one, come to Madison, try them.
They're really good.
Your game day will never be the same. Yes, exactly.
So good.
But as for things about the city that I think are really special, game days obviously are like nothing else. I love game day in Madison. I always will. I'm always going to look back on game days fondly. I was super excited to get to experience game days as a fan this year. It looks like that might not happen, but hopefully sometime in the future I'll get to experience that from the other side of things.
I can tell you, game days as a fan is a lot of fun.
I can't wait.
So much fun. Regardless of how good or bad your team is, so much fun.
Yes, and to get to watch the band perform, to see all the people that were underclassmen when I was in the band, kind of take the helm and do that. It's going to be really awesome. I'm looking forward to that. But other things about Madison that I love is that obviously Wisconsin is very north and has very long winters, but I love that Madison always feels like a year-round city. Even in the wintertime, like the lakes freeze over. Like you were saying, we've got some beautiful lakes around here, and people, go play broom ball out on the lakes. You can walk across all of the lakes. They freeze over. Ice fishing, all of that great stuff. And then in the summer, Madison just comes to life. We have the Terrace, which is a beautiful spot on the lake once again. And the Terrace is definitely a really like a trademark spot in Madison. Go get a pitcher of beer, sit with your friends, watch the sunset, like bliss, true Wisconsin bliss right there. So yeah, like Wisconsin just feels like there's always something fun to do. Like the city never stops. There's, wintertime activities. I love snow, so I guess I'm a little bit partial, but I love spending winters here. I think it's a beautiful place to be. And then in the summer, you can do all of your favorite summer activities.
I do have to ask though, does it suck going to classes when it's like -20 outside?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. Yes, it does suck.
What's the attire for a day like that? Like I know we're going a little bit off track here, but like say you're going out and it's like -15 degrees Fahrenheit. Like what's the attire? What are you wearing? Is it like something that like you would wear if you're going up to like the ski slopes or like how is it?
Yeah, my favorite like biking or walking to class attire in like January or February is actually overalls. Like I love overalls with like 2 layers of long underwear underneath, and then I wear like a mask on my face, and then if it's like snowing, like no shame, I'll wear my ski goggles to class. Like I'll do it. I will wear my ski goggles on campus. It's funny too here because there's quite a few people who will bike to class throughout the winter or bike commute. And they wear like their ski helmets and their ski goggles on their bike as like their personal protection, but also cold protection. So I love watching that. I think it's hilarious.
That's an iconic thing. I'll have to come and visit Madison at some point during a winter at some point just to see it.
The moral of this podcast: come to Madison, check it out. It's awesome.
It is a very nice city. I remember when I went there with my band, and there was just like 15 of us. But it was such a nice trip. It was a beautiful city, very welcoming from the Madison band, the Wisconsin band. All around, just a great place.
That's just like I'm just like trying to like picture that in my head, because at Maryland, if we get like 1.5 inches of snow, they'll be like, oh, there's going to be no class today. And you guys are going out in like 3 feet of snow and you're just like, let's do this. Just absolutely
that's another big part of our marching season is that it gets cold here. On Halloween last year, there was 6 inches of snow. And so we marched in that because, we don't have an indoor facility. So we marched in that and we did it.
Jesus.
And I think other bands experience this too, but like our instruments freeze in November and you are just destined to play whatever note your instrument freezes on for the rest of rehearsal. Like you get that note and that's it. So we definitely struggle and enjoy and take pride in, I think is a good way to describe it in the weather up here.
That's a great way to describe it.
I think I just cracked the code on why Big Ten bans high step. It's because you guys have to march through so much snow, and if you were to roll step, your feet you wouldn't be able to push through all that snow. You got to get that foot up and down, up and through that snow.
That's a true statement.
I think you nailed it. That sounds right to me.
He cracked the code.
Yeah. All right. So I guess to wrap things up, if you were to give, like a 30-second elevator pitch to somebody who is considering doing band, coming out of high school, they're thinking about maybe should I go to this school that doesn't have a band, or should I go to this one instead and join the band there? Why should they come and join band, and maybe specifically Wisconsin joining the Wisconsin band?
Yeah, totally. Well, for me, the 2 big draws for me were music and sports, were what I was interested in high school. And marching band was the way to pursue both of those things in a way. My high school didn't have a marching band, so I didn't really entirely understand what I was getting myself into. But I get to pursue music at a college level. I'm not majoring in music. I'm not a music ed major. I don't play in any other ensembles really, but I still get to play, or I did until this year. I got to play trumpet, which was really special to me, and I was glad to keep doing that after, dedicating so much time to it in elementary school, middle school, high school, all of that stuff. So that was a really great thing. I enjoyed it all the way through, and I'm so happy that I got to continue with it. another thing is, like, I love watching sports, and, like, if you don't want to pay tickets and, like, if you want to go watch every single game, like, to your heart's desire, join the band, because you get to go early to the games, stay late for the games, watch every single second of the games, learn every single in and out of the game. I'm sure you guys know very well, like, being in the band, you learn every single tradition and every single, little
guaranteed seat at every game.
Exactly. Yeah. And
no-brainer.
Going along with that, you can travel with the teams. I mean, I've gone places with the band that I never would have imagined I'd get to go. And being able to, share my talents with people on the road and share our music as a band together on the road is something so special. Like, not to go back to Mike LeCrone, but always to go back to Mike LeCrone. He had this phrase, moments of happiness, and that's something that's really, really stuck with me. Moments of happiness, as he describes it, are moments that you will always hold with you, and that when times are tough, you can think back on those moments of happiness. Basically, the standout things in your time that make it, that make you happy and bring a smile to your face. And I have had so many moments of happiness with this band, and when I think about them, they make me happy, and I just value them so much. And so definitely don't take it for granted. It goes fast, but that's a piece of advice I have. But take it from me, like, joining a marching band was the best decision of my college career. I think one of your previous guests talked about this, but when you come to campus and join a marching band, you immediately have a family of 300 people on campus. People who are going to watch out for you, make friends with you, become lifelong friends, help you be better, and push you every step of the way to be your best. And that's something that not a lot of student orgs can say, I don't think. And so, that's it. Countless moments of happiness. Eat a rock, once a Badger, always a Badger, and on Wisconsin.
All righty, well...
That leads us to the moment that you have all been waiting for, because I know you're still listening. Craig, we need our New Jersey Blasters / Somerset Patriots update. What is currently going on at whatever the heck the stadium is called? I'm sorry.
All righty, this week in TD Bank Ballpark.
That's what it's called.
The monotony of the Somerset Patriots scoring 2 runs every single game has come to an end. Also, the Blasters winning on Friday nights and then the Patriots winning on Saturday nights, that happening every week, that has come to an end tonight. As tonight, the Patriots fell to the Blasters in a 3-1 loss. After last night, the Patriots also fell to the Blasters in a 2-3 loss. An interesting statistic for those of you that are keeping track at home, though, is until tonight, the Patriots have scored 2 runs every single game, while the Blasters have been much more varying in their scores. However, every Friday night, the Blasters score has gone down by 2. So is this saying that next week the Blasters are going to lose by 1 point? It's going to, or 1 run, 2-1? We'll just have to wait and see. So make sure you tune in next week and stick all the way through for your New Jersey Blasters and Somerset Patriots update. Oh, one more thing in there that I forgot.
So they're leading the series 4-2 right now, right?
Yes, 4-2.
Okay.
And for those of you that were astute listeners, you may have noticed that there were originally 2 games scheduled every week for 6 weeks for the series. However, that leaves a final series of 12 games. What happens if they split it 6-6? And so they decided, you know what? Here we go. We're going to add a 13th game, lucky game 13. Let's make sure we're all rooting for our Blasters. But until then, I guess there's only one team to root for, and that's on Wisconsin. So
right.
So I think on that, it's a perfect way to end it. Thanks so much, Justine, for coming on. Sorry that things were a little bit weird this week, but we try to do our best. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. Make sure to listen. We now have our own YouTube channel, College Band Radio. Follow us on YouTube, or follow us on Twitter. I think it's capital CBR_825. Listen to us, or listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. Stay safe, stay healthy, make sure to wear a mask, and we will talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me, guys. Eat a rock, once a Badger, always a Badger, and on Wisconsin.